Hello, guys. It's Misty from Join the Journey, and we are here today for Fess Up Friday, where we talk about homeschool joys and struggles. And I am here with my friend Dachelle from Hide the Chocolate Blog. How are you, Dachelle?
I'm great, thank you.
Yes, so we're going to talk a little bit about your joys and struggles, but why don't we start off with talking a little bit about you and why you began homeschooling?
Okay. I'm a mom in the South. You can probably tell by my accent. I have three kids. My oldest is 18 and is in college, and my younger two, and he's a boy. And then I have two girls who are 12 and 9 that I homeschool. And we did not get into homeschooling in a way that a lot of people do. There was no big epiphany that said you need to homeschool. The kids were going to school that I was teaching at, and I was teaching a lot of hours, and I was working a lot of hours at home to prepare. And I kept thinking, why am I doing this when I could spend time at home with the kids? And really, honestly, homeschooling was never on my radar, just never. And just one day I thought, this might be something that we could do. At one point we were driving like an hour for school every day to
Wow.
get them to school. Yeah, it was crazy. My kids were getting up at 5:30 in the morning, and I was like, this is not worth it. And so I just said, let's homeschool. And we tried it and loved it. And the biggest reason I loved the idea was because I didn't have to stay with somebody else's mold. I didn't have to follow somebody else's schedule. If we wanted to go on a trip, we went on a trip. And that it's just more relaxed for us, and we get to kind of explore things more. I feel like education should be more of an adventure and more of us getting out and exploring things and seeing things and touching it instead of just always in a book. So that's
Yeah.
kind of where we started.
I love that. And do you know, even though we've been friends online for a little while, I've never heard your homeschool story.
That's
So
it.
now I've heard it. Yes, that is awesome. That is awesome. I didn't know that about you. So that is great. I actually was, when we started homeschooling, I was a teacher before too. And then I quit teaching to run a daycare. And then I was doing preschool. And then, yeah, my story was not exactly like yours, but yeah, it's different too, I think, coming from an education background into homeschooling, because you have to almost break yourself of
Yeah,
that public school mold to homeschool.
very much. That is very true. Having to let go of all those ideas of
Mm-hmm.
a certain schedule and a certain routine and what you expect out of your children. That's hard, very hard.
Yeah, that was one of my biggest struggles, I think. So, okay, so I have 4 questions here, and we're gonna get started. So the first one is, what is one struggle or fear you have had regarding homeschooling?
I think that what we were just talking about is a big fear I have. If you come from an education background, and my parents are both educators, my husband's father's an educator, so I come from and I've got lots of aunts and uncles that are educators, so I
Mm-hmm.
come from a huge family of educators, and some in public school, some in private school. And I think one of the hardest things I have as a homeschool mom is the fear that I'm not going to prepare them for what they need to succeed in life.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I'm sure that would be my fear if I wasn't a homeschool mom, because my oldest is not homeschooled. He was homeschooled 1 year, but we decided to homeschool after he'd already been in school up through high school, and so he just didn't want to switch over with us. I still have those fears for him. Did I teach him everything? Does he have everything he needs to succeed in life? So I'm pretty sure it's the same fear all parents have. Are we preparing our kids? Are we giving them everything they need? And, like you said, coming from an educating background, you're thinking the whole time, are we going to this standard? Are the kids getting this? Are they meeting these standards so that they can do well in life? I mean, and then you have to consider, what is success? And I've had to really reprogram myself in that, because it was always, you do well in the ACT, you go to college, you blah,
Mm-hmm.
blah, blah. But what is success? And that's a really hard struggle I have. I mean, I have a hard time looking at my children. I have one who is taking high school biology classes right now because she wants to do it. She's in middle school, she's 7th grade, but she wants to do it. But do I focus on that? No,
Mm-hmm.
I focus on the fact that she struggles with writing a paragraph
Right.
or that she struggles with her algebra. That's what I'm thinking of. I'm not looking at all the great things that she's surpassing. I keep struggling with, did I meet her needs on this? So I
Mm-hmm.
think that's my biggest fear.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's real. I mean, that's something we all struggle with. I know I have my youngest has some special needs, and then my middle wants to be a veterinarian, and like I have like really, really struggled. Like, how am I going to prepare her for like
Yes.
medical school, and like where's that line between pushing her to reach her um, capabilities versus stealing her love of education? Because right now she loves
Right.
devouring those nonfiction books, but does that mean I want to like push advanced biology on her in fifth grade? Although
Right.
she did, when we went to the 2-1 conference, Dachelle and I attended a homeschool blogging conference together recently, and came home with that marine biology, and it's like a high school level course, and she's already started like looking into this. And yeah, but it's a hard balance. I get it 100%. So okay, the next one is do you feel that you fully overcome that fear or struggle, which I think we kind of already touched in this a little bit, but how are you working on it? How are you working on overcoming that?
Yeah, I don't think as parents we ever overcome that fear or
Mm-hmm.
struggle of do we give our children everything they need to succeed. I mean, I just don't think as if you're a parent that's really wanting to be a part of your children's life and help them, that you'll ever overcome that fear. I look at my college kid and I'm constantly worried about, is he getting everything? That's the biggest thing I have in life is to back off from that and say, okay, at some point it's his life and he has to do what he wants to do. But one of the ways I've stopped with some of the fears is I stopped testing. So it used to be, because I come from the educator background, we did the standardized test every
Mm-hmm.
year, and that would just flip everybody out. Because we don't do everything the way the school system does anymore. We may do a mastery approach on math, and so my child hasn't gotten to fractions where they're touching in on it. I remember one day my youngest came home and she said I said, how did the testing go? And she said, well, Mommy, they asked questions that I didn't know. And it turns out it was multiplication. And she was in doing the mastery approach of subtraction. So she hadn't got to multiplication. And I said, well, that's okay. And she was just very upset about it. So, I looked at her and I said, okay, well, did they ask you about Shakespeare? No. Did they ask you to, to conjugate a Latin a noun
Yeah.
or anything, verb? And she's like, no. And so I started going through all the things. Well, did they dissect anything? Did you shop it? No. So all these things that we do that she doesn't realize are education because we're
Yes.
having fun with it. I had to just bring that out, and bringing it out for her helped me to see this testing isn't important. This goal of where we're at in the standards is not important. And don't get me wrong, every single year when this comes up, I'm back at it stressing out. But that's the only way I can pull back on it, is not to do all the testing and looking at what everybody else is doing in the comparison, because it's too much on all of us.
I love that so much because we live in Ohio. And in our state, at the end of the year, you have to either standardize test or do like a portfolio review. And we've always tested, because whenever we first started homeschooling, it was an agreement made between me and my husband is that if we were going to homeschool, that I was going to standardize test, and it's a requirement in our state sort of anyway. But I've always told the kids, I'm like, there's going to be things on this test that we have not got to, that we have not learned. And I could care less how you do on it, because think of all the things, like you said, that we have done that they're not going to ask on this test. And that test does not measure your worth either. And I think that's so important for our kids to know, because we are living in a culture where in public schools, they test everything.
Yes.
And the world measures them on those test scores, at least the education, system. And yeah, that is one thing that we have. In my first couple years, I was a little OCD about it. I think I even posted Allison's standardized test results on social media our very first year homeschooling. True story. True story. I did, because she had scored so well, and I'm like, I guess I'm doing something right. And now when that comes back in my memories, I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I did that. But I had come from that education background, like you mentioned, and for me, that was empowering. I don't post them now, and that was the only time I'd ever done that. But yeah, so anyway, there's my funny story that none of you probably knew that, and everybody does now. So, Okay, so next question. What is one thing, and again, we've kind of touched on a lot of these already. What is one thing that you have learned as a homeschool mom?
Yeah, that, and I've learned to that I make the schedule doesn't make me.
I love that.
So that was a big thing in the beginning because, I was making out this wonderful schedule, and I had to have a schedule because I'd always, when I was teaching, I had to have the schedule and I had to show it to all these people and everybody had to see it. So it was always a schedule from the beginning of the year, and we just moved it if there was a program or whatever. And what happened was the very first year I started homeschooling, the first 9 weeks, I had this awesome schedule with all these wonderful curriculum, and the curriculum started falling apart. The kids are crying and I'm crying. We're all like, why are we doing this? This is crazy. And then I was trying, like, well, we're so far behind. We're so far behind. We can't get behind. We have to do this. And we can't take a day off to do this. We were going to actually, there was a trip that came up to see family in West Virginia. And I was saying, well, I don't know that we can do that. We can't take a day off here. And I thought, whoa, 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 whoa. This is why we're homeschooling.
Exactly. Yes.
So, letting go of that schedule. And I know Julie Bogart from Brave Rider likes to say, keep a routine, not a schedule. And I had to get that in my head a lot. It's a routine. We do these things daily when we have school. We have our morning meetup. We go to our individual work. That's our routine. But it doesn't mean that today the routine doesn't get thrown off and we go off on a field trip, and that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
So just making sure the schedule isn't forcing me to do things I don't want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's a hard thing what is the word I'm looking for? It's hard to come to that realization, I think. And I know it takes a while, and I still struggle with that. I think I actually told
Yeah.
the kids this week we had to go out of town a couple times for doctor's appointments, and I'm like, we were going to take Thanksgiving break next year, but we are behind. We're behind. We're not taking it. And so you just reminded me that that schedule does not own me. So maybe we will take a couple days off next week. We'll see. I'll check in with you, and you can hold me accountable to that. My kids are in the other room right now, being like, "Yes, we don't have to do school next week."
I'm glad I could be there for your kids.
Yes, yes, you're wonderful. I'll have Daniel thank you later.
Okay.
So, okay, last question is, how do you find joy in your homeschool day?
This is my favorite question.
Yay!
This is what our homeschool is about, is finding joy. We spend a lot of time doing things that are outside of the normal homeschool scheduling things. We do poetry tea times, where once a month we meet with our friends at the library, and we have different themes. So we decorate up for the theme. We have tea or hot chocolate or lemonade or whatever for the kids. We read poetry. They do some kind of writing activity. We have book clubs where we read a book each month, and then at the end of the month, we meet with all our friends, and we have what we call party school. It's where we're having big, elaborate, fancy foods, and we're doing some kind of activities and fun like that. We go on field trips a lot. So what I found that brings the joy into our homeschool is doing things that, as I said before, education should be living, breathing, tangible. You should be able to touch it. And so I found that when we're sitting around just doing our book work all the time, it can kind of get dull. And so we bring the joy back into it by getting out and experience education. And that's whenever I feel really bad about things, that things are going, I realize that we've been stuck in the house and we're doing the same thing, or we're not necessarily stuck in the house, because we can stay in the house and do fun things, but we're just stuck in doing the same old thing over and over. So we like to add, exciting experiences into our homeschool. So that's kind of our favorite thing to do.
I love that. And I have heard a lot about this poetry time. And I'm thinking that, okay, I'm going to have another confession here for you, Dachelle.
Okay.
We've never studied poetry in our homeschool. Ever. I am not a poetry person. I'm not a poem person. I'm sorry ahead of time. But I've heard a lot about this poetry time philosophy. So where exactly does that come from? We're going to take a rabbit trail.
Okay. I actually first heard about it from Julie Bogart. She was actually on, I think it was Read Aloud Revival or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Where I was listening to her and she was talking about it. And we kind of made it our own thing, because normally it's like you sit in your house and you fix yourself a nice, like go to the dining room, put the candles on, get out the teacups, fix tea, some kind of snacks and sit around and read poetry. And we've kind of taken that to the next level by meeting with all our friends at the library. What is great about it is when we started doing it, we simply just, everybody brought poetry to read. So like my youngest never comes to poetry tea time without Shel Silverstein. I mean, every single time.
I've heard of Shel Silverstein.
Okay, well, Shel Silverstein, he's awesome. So that's a good way to start poetry.
Okay.
And then we've kind of evolved it. Like this year, we're doing around the world poetry tea time. So each month, I have a different country. Like for example, this month was Greece. And so all the kids brought poems that were either about Greece or by Greek poets or writers or whatever. So we had just, a ton of myths and things like that. And they read all the poetry while they ate their snacks. A lot of them drink tea now. It's kind of funny. They started off only hot chocolate, only lemonade, but a lot of them will drink tea now. And they know how many cubes of sugar to put in there and how much cream to put in. It's hysterical.
That's awesome.
Even boys. We have boys there too. Girls and boys, everything. And then after they've eaten and they've read their poetry, then I usually have some kind of writing activity. So this used to be like these kids would not write. If you said, I want you to do some kind of writing thing, they would not do it. They would freeze up. I mean, I've had parents come up to me and say, my kid doesn't write. I don't know how you got him to write. And the simple thing was we were just having fun and he didn't realize he was writing. And I would say, okay, we're going to do this activity. And they just did it. And so my daughter, who literally refuses to write, I mean, will end up in tears over it, writes all the time at poetry tea time. And I'm just quietly laughing like, oh, I got you to write and you have no idea that you did it. And I have kids that are writing like 3 and 4 poems when, you only have the one poem you have to do. So I think part of it is being in a group where it's fun. And then you're taking you're not sitting down with your book and you're following a certain method. You're just having fun with it. And that's what poetry tea time is about. It's more enjoying something that a lot of times, like if I think about it, poetry, like when I studied in college, it was rough. It was hard. You're analyzing all this stuff.
That's why we've never done it. Yeah. It's because I never liked poetry. I do remember Shel Silverstein. I do remember him. I think we've discussed him at some point in my school career.
Okay, go
at some point, I remember it. Yeah.
We all know the books. You'll get them. Come on. You got to go. I'm going to send you a book.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to get a gift from that. But that sounds awesome, though. And I think you're right. Like poetry, and I love this rabbit trail that we went down. It was never fun in school, but the way that you're talking about it, like, sounds fun and fancy and like almost, is whimsical the right word? Are we going to have vocabulary lesson now too? Whimsical, right?
Yes, like, I agree.
Okay. All right. Good. So, okay. I'm a good homeschool mom. I know my vocabulary.
I think if you add food to anything, it becomes fun.
Okay.
So most of our things end up with food. If you have some kind of snacks, especially sweet snacks, all of a sudden kids love to do it.
So don't hide the chocolate.
Exactly. Don't. Well, at least off of mom.
That's awesome. Okay, so Dachelle, I think that's what we have. This has been so much fun. I've loved talking to you. And Dachelle and I have actually met in person. So even though we're both bloggers, we have actually met and had the opportunity to hug each other's necks. And she is a sweetheart. So, but we didn't share chocolate.
No,
we did not share chocolate.
I don't share chocolate.
So Dachelle, tell everybody where they can find you if they want to follow your blog and like maybe on social media and your website and everything. So let us all know.
Okay, well, I blog at hidethechocolate.com. On Facebook, I'm at Hide the Chocolate. Instagram, Hide the Chocolate was already taken, sadly, so I'm Hide the Chocolate blog. I am on Twitter, but don't expect a lot of response from me because I'm on Twitter because my kids are on Twitter and I don't really understand it very well. But I'm on there at ATLSJKDM. Yeah, you'll never remember that. So just
So you are a fellow non-tweeter like me.
I try. I really do. And occasionally I will tweet and I'm like so proud of myself. And then I'm like, I don't know why I'm doing this. It's so confusing.
So Emily, luckily, though, still likes us, even though we're anti-tweeters.
Maybe she'll tweet for me.
And for those of you who are watching this one and missed last week, you'll have to go back and check out the one with Table Life blog and hear about why I detest Twitter. So, all right. Well, Dachelle, thank you so much. This has been so much fun. And
Me
you
too.
guys make sure you go and you follow Dachelle at Hide the Chocolate. And we will see you all next week. Have a great day, guys. Bye.
Thank you.